Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Tracy Leja, Krepps, Executive Director of Masonic Village at Sewickley, and my co-presenter this evening is Gail Neustadt. Thank you all for being here. We are going to share our journey, although very similar, very different, regarding family members who had dementia. So life is very unpredictable. I graduated from Robert Morris College on a Friday in 1992, and I took a job with a small long-term care company, started on Monday, and I was just going to be there until something better came along. When I was growing up, the daughter of a healthcare accountant and a nurse, I was not going into healthcare. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. It wasn't going into healthcare. So after about 6 months at my position doing billing for a small company, I thought, I can do that job just as well as that lady can. What does it take to be a nursing home administrator? So I took my classes, did my administrator and training classes, took my test, passed the first time. Still not sure how I did that. So thus, 1994, I became a nursing home administrator. And again, that was never my plan. I've had administrative roles, and I always had contact with residents, but that wasn't my primary role. I was always in charge of billing. In 1994, my mom was in a severe accident that resulted in many injuries, and she has a history in her family of Parkinson's disease. Her physical function began to decline, and she was having some memory issues, but that comes with age, right? I was blessed to have known all my grandparents. My paternal grandmother passed away first of a heart attack. My maternal grandfather was next. He had Alzheimer's and dementia. My paternal grandfather was the following, and then there was HP. HP was my maternal grandmother, who was just the Energizer Bunny. She went till she was 95. With relatives with dementia, you think you know what to expect. And I do this every day as a living. I've got this, right? Nope, I had no idea how challenging the road ahead of me would be. My mother was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. She started her decline probably at the age of 62. By 65, she was really progressing rapidly. But she as a nurse knew better, and there was nothing wrong with her. And God bless my father, he just went along with it. It's such a different situation when it's a direct relative. Even with my grandmothers and my grandfathers, that was still distant enough, but that immediate of a family member, that was tough. I have one sister and one brother, and my brother's 10 years younger than I am. My sister had to move out of state for her career, and my brother, because of the age gap, he had young children. He has 3 young girls. So it's kind of just me and my dad to navigate our way through this. Before my mom passed away, she said, keep an eye on your father when I'm gone. Little did I know how hard that would be. My mom had to go to a nursing home, and she was there for about 6 months before she passed away. My dad would always say to me, why does your mother cry when I leave, but your mother doesn't cry when you leave? And I said, because I don't say goodbye. He said, I've never lied to your mother one day in my life, and I'm not starting now. I said, I don't lie to her. He said, well, how do you get out the door without her crying? I said, because I say I'll be back. He said, to her, there's no concept of time. I'll be back could be 10 minutes, could be 10 days, could be 10 hours. I just said I'll be back. Took him a while to get to that point, but he did finally get to the point where he would say, Shar, I'll be back, I love you. When it became clear that my mom's end was near, there was many laughters, a lot of tears. We had to have the laughter to offset those tears. One story that's a legend in our family is about a brown Coach purse. My sister wanted this brown Coach purse for Christmas in the worst way. So my mom goes on Black Friday to buy my sister this purse. She calls me from the store. Which one is it? Here, talk to the sales lady. I said, it's the third section over, second shelf down. It's got a long handle. It was $119. She's like, I know exactly what purse. So my mom buys this purse for my sister. We started opening Christmas gifts. The purse is nowhere to be found. So I said, Mom, where's the Coach bag? Shh, it's in the bedroom. I said, well, why isn't it here? Well, your sister's going to try to steal my purse. I said, the one you bought for her? She's going to steal my purse. I know she's going to steal my purse. So at this point, my mom had significant limited mobility. My sister's getting ready to drive back to Virginia. My mother hops out of bed on Saturday night to run to the garage to get the purse because my sister's going to steal that purse. My sister comes home for Easter. My mom says, I have an issue with you. My sister said, what's that? She said, you keep leaving your purse here. Will you take it home already? Little did my mother know, after the day after Christmas, we went and bought the same Coach purse so that my sister really got her Christmas present. So now there's 2 brown Coach purses. But again, if we didn't laugh, we were going to cry. I can still remember the look on my mother's face the day that she actively started to decline. It was a Sunday afternoon. She had just been to church. And I will never get that vision out of my mind. She just looked at me as if to say, I'm done. I don't have any more fight in me. My dad and I had a conversation that we were going to respect my mother's wishes. My mom was stubborn. Stubborn? My husband will tell you I'd probably get some of that from her. But we said we weren't going to keep vigil, and we weren't going to stay at her bed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we wanted her to have the opportunity to pass away the way she wanted to. Because she was such a private person, we knew she wouldn't want anybody to be there with her. We knew that that wouldn't be the last memory she wanted everybody to have of her. I can remember exactly what day it was. It was Valentine's Day, and it was also Ash Wednesday. The only restaurant we could find to go to was Five Guys. In a Catholic family, Five Guys was not the place to go on Ash Wednesday. Your options were grilled cheese or grilled cheese. So we're about halfway through dinner, and I have my phone in my bra, and it rings. And I just looked at my sister looked at me, and my dad said, well, hurry up, we can get back to the nursing home before anything happens. And I had to look at him and say, no, Dad, Mom's gone. And that was probably one of the hardest moments of my life. My sister and brother kept saying to me, you haven't cried. We're waiting for you to break down because you've not cried. I said, and I'm not going to cry. And they said, why aren't you going to cry? I said, because my tears have already been shed. I said, Mom's in a better place now and her suffering's over. I said, there's nothing to cry about. And I really never did cry much after she went because I knew she was in a better place. One of the lessons that I learned on this journey was you can't expect out of others what you would do in a situation. It was frustrating because my brother doesn't deal with stress and medical issues well, so he kind of stayed away. And at first that used to make me angry. And then I thought, that's not fair for me to judge him because he didn't respond the way I responded. So my mantra became, at the end of the day, when I lay my head on my pillow, did I do the best job I can do? Because that's all I can expect. I can't expect that others are going to respond the way I do. I can't expect others are going to feel the way I do. As I think back to those days, there's one thing that I think of more now than I did then. I got married late in life compared to my parents who had been married for over 50 years. I don't think until I got married, I grasped how difficult this had to have been for my dad. This was the love of his life for 50 years. They were side by side, carrying on, laughing, having a good time. My dad would come home and say, let's go to the beach, and my mom would say, sure, no problem, pack up the car. The love of his life for 50 years was gone You knew it was going to happen, but that still didn't make it any easier. In some ways, I feel like I've kind of replaced my mom as the family matriarch. My brother and sister sometimes don't see eye to eye. And we'll laugh because my brother will be on this phone, then my sister will call on the other phone, and then they're going back and forth. I kind of have to be the buffer. I've kind of assumed that position that Mom had. There's two things that I wish could have been different before my mother passed away. The first is she never had the opportunity to meet my husband. I do know that I'm a very faithful person and I believe in signs, and I do believe that she has shown me signs that she is happy, but I would have loved for her to be able to meet him. And we joke because his mother passed away 2 years before my mother. And we envision that when my mom got to heaven, his mom was standing there waiting for her going, "My son needs help." And my mom said, "Well, that's good because my daughter does too." Not only did I gain a loving husband, I gained children, grandchildren, and now a great-grandchild. My husband gave me everything I ever wanted in life, and I could never have because I didn't have the ability to have children. It kind of made me feel complete. I was a different person after losing my mom at 72 than I was before that. I feel like some of the selfishness that comes in your younger years went away. And my husband always says, "I wish we would have met earlier." And I said, "I don't. Because if you would have met the person earlier, I'm not the same person now that I was then. I feel like I have a much better outlook on life. Things that used to be important, they're all kind of silly right now." The other thing I regret is that my brother's children didn't have the opportunity to see my mom before she passed away. With a 10-year age gap, they were different. They were younger. They were probably 8, 6, and 2. Whereas my sister's children were older. So my sister's children got the ability to be with my mom before she passed, whereas my brothers didn't. The other thing that was disheartening is the kids never really understood why Grandma was the way she was. I can remember my grandfather, who had dementia. His filter was broken on a good day. I got to his house one day and he says, "Hey, what leg class you wrestling these days, sumo?" And my mom said, "Just walk away, Tracy, and just walk away." I said, "Okay, Mom." She's like, "Just remember, he doesn't know what he's saying." I wish they could have been a bigger part of her life when she was passing away, but I also respect the fact that my brother was trying to shield them. I wish back then that resources like what Gail has developed would have been available for my nieces and nephews to better understand why Grandma was the way she was and what the road looked like for both Grandma and Grandpa as my mother passed away. So she lives in my heart forever. She guides most of my decisions in life. And just like I said, although she never had the chance to meet my husband, I'm pretty sure she was happy. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Gail.
Very wonderful. Thank you so much, and good evening to everyone. Unfortunately, I can't stand up and speak extemporaneously very well. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, is that better? Okay, now you can hear me. I was saying I can't speak any longer extemporaneously the way Tracy did, so I'm going to kind of read my talk and speak it and read it together with you, so bear with me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We've got a nice group, and I'd like to thank our Executive Director, Tracy, for her kind introduction and for sharing her experiences as both a caregiver and a professional in long-term care for so many years. I'd also like to thank Jim Lee and Pat Dorning for recording tonight's program, and Karen Spar for helping to organize the evening. For those of you I haven't met yet, because there are some new folks here, I'm Gail Neustadt. Many of you know me as a neighbor here at Masonic Village, where I've lived for the past 4 years. As a writer, I use the pen name Dylan Weiss. Although at our age, keeping track of one name is hard enough. What some people may not know is that my writing journey grew out of my experiences as a caregiver for my husband Dave, who had the early onset Alzheimer's disease type for more than 15 years. Today, more than 7 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. Some, like my husband Dave, were diagnosed before the age of 65 with the early onset form of Alzheimer's. There are also today nearly 12 million family members and friends who are unpaid caregivers. What made our journey somewhat unusual was that I was not only Dave's wife and primary caregiver, but also a geriatric speech-language therapist. I want to say pathologist because it's SLP, but you all know us as therapists, specializing in communication programs for individuals with cognitive impairment. Tonight, I'd like to share how caregiving changed not only my life, but also the direction of my writing. People often ask how I moved from writing textbooks, rehabilitation systems, government regulations, into worlds of fantasy and creative nonfiction, and how a cast of animal characters somehow became central to my stories. The question of my pen name, Dylan Weiss, I'll save for another time because that's a whole other story. But tonight I'd like to share the story behind my stories. All writers have backstories, those experiences, journeys, and events that lead them to a particular genre or way of telling their stories. For me, it was a series of magical moments that first inspired Skunk Tales trilogy, and many years later led to Traveling Our Road, a quasi-children's picture book that we'll watch together in a few minutes. We hope we'll watch it together. Otherwise, I'll be reading it. Looking back, I think our once beautiful life together began to change when Dave was only 47 years old. I had started noticing small changes that connected me, that concerned me, although we didn't have a diagnosis yet. Finally, in August of 1996, when Dave was 54, he was formally diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. The following month, we attended a Pittsburgh Pops concert. 2 performers came out on stage dressed as hobos. Faces smudged, baggy pants, patched and worn, shirts tattered, and they each carried a sack tied to the end of a stick. When they began singing Side by Side, tears, I'm gonna cry as I remember it, tears ran down my cheeks as the words hit me full force because it was us, traveling our road and sharing our load, side by side. Ironically, in that moment though, I understood what lay ahead. Ironically, one of the first things Dave lost was speech. Over the next several years, I developed communication programs for him and eventually wrote about them for the ASHA leader. Now, ASHA is American Speech Language Hearing Association. That's my professional national organization. The first article that I wrote for them was titled Side by Side. It was written in 2001, and then in 2002, it received a prestigious literary award from SNAP called the Society for National Association of Publications. It's got a new name now. Then, 5 years later, when Dave was in the late stage of the disease and about a year before he died, our grandson Joey unexpectedly became part of the story. By then, not only was Dave mute, but his face was expressionless, and he experienced occasional involuntary clonic movements, like this. Our 2.5-year-old grandson, Joey, was frightened by what he saw, he refused to go near his grandpa, saying simply, "Too scary." Joey's fear broke my heart. I was determined to find a way to ease his fear and help him connect with his grandpa. Realizing he had never known Dave before Alzheimer's disease, I decided to create a special picture book to introduce Joey to his grandfather, the grandfather he never knew. I paired old photos of Dave doing activities. In fact, I have one of the picture books here. And you know what? We can pass it around if people want to look at it. This was a copy of one of the books I did for him. I paired old photos of Dave doing fun activities with characters from Joey's favorite Winnie the Pooh storybook. And I used a tagline: Dave used to swim, just like Tigger. Or Dave used to hike, just like Christopher Robin. Or Dave used to like to go boating, just like Eeyore. And I called this little book Dave's Tale. As Joey sat beside Dave, listening to me read the story, his fear began to disappear. Little by little, Grandpa no longer seemed too scary. Next, by pure coincidence, I received a phone call from the editor of the ASHA Leader, that same newsletter I had told you about earlier, asking if I had developed anything new communication programs for Dave. I told them about writing Dave's tale for Joey and was invited to submit a follow-up article, which was then published as Still Side by Side, and it had a picture of Joey in it. That article led to a call from a colleague who was coordinating presentations for the 2007 ASHA convention that was in Boston that November. She asked me to present a workshop on communication programs for individuals with dementia, including the picture book Dave's Tale. I accepted the invitation, and my magical journey continued. However, there was a fly in the ointment, as so to speak. I was told I could not use Winnie the Pooh pictures due to copyright infringement, etc. Our conversation went something like this. So my colleague, Michelle, said, "Okay." She said, "You can't do that." I said, "Okay, then I won't include Dave's Tale." She says, "No, you have to. It's really important. Just use pictures of other animals." And I said, "I can't do that. It's based on a story." Then she says, "Well, then, quick, write a children's story with animal characters that can substitute those animals for the ones you used in Winnie the Pooh." Several days later, while driving and daydreaming, I asked myself, "Okay, self, if you're an animal like Eeyore, who had lost his tail, what kind of animal would you be?" Thus was born Sebastian Skunk. And from there, the other characters slowly followed. So what began as a solution to a copyright problem eventually evolved into Skunk Tales trilogy. To my surprise, these imaginary animals brought humor, and Tracy talked about how important humor is, but it was the animals that brought humor back into my life during one of its most difficult times. Their adventures became so funny that I often found myself laughing out loud while I was writing, and truly laughter is the best medicine. My stories grew into 2 award-winning books filled with political allegory, humor, and deeper themes for children and adults alike. Both were published by Red Engine Press in 2016 and 2017. The trilogy, which took nearly 8 years to write and publish, expanded to more than 350 pages and over 20 characters. So yes, the long-awaited 3rd book is, by the way, still in progress. I'm writing it as we speak. Years later, I returned to the original idea behind Dave's Tale and rewrote it using 7 of the characters from the first 2 books in the trilogy. That book eventually became Traveling Our Road, and it was published in 2021. Although it was created to help children feel less afraid when visiting an ill one, I later discovered that it also opened meaningful conversations among adult caregivers and support groups. The road in the story became symbolic of the journey shared by both caregivers and loved ones. a road shaped by love, loss, resilience, and commitment. As you watch the animated version tonight, I invite you to think about your own journeys. Perhaps you'll think of a child visiting a grandparent. Perhaps you'll remember your own caregiving experiences. Because in one way or another, most of us have already or will eventually travel some version of that road. Although writing and humor helped me survive those years, caregiving also left invisible wounds. After more than 15 years of really difficult experiences during Dave's decline, I was left with what today would be called PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Yet, caregiving also changed the way I saw life. In many ways, I now feel obligated to live partly for both Dave and myself, what psychologist Dr. Joseph Kasper described as co-destiny. And that's where the caregiver carries a part of the loved one's journey forward into their own life. And perhaps that is why traveling our road became much more than simply a children's story. It became a story about enduring connection, healing after loss, and love that endures long after illness changes our lives. As you watch and listen tonight, see how many symbols and hidden meanings you can spot along the way. As I said, we're going to watch. This is the story. Keep your eye out for any symbolism.
Traveling Our Road, by Dylan Weiss and illustrated by Abigail Wallach. Narrated by Lila Chasen. Dedicated to David J. Neustadt. Hi, my name is Dylan, and this is DJ, my best friend. I have a magical story for you, that you don't know that magic is all around us. We can hear it, we can see it, we can smell it, we can feel it. DJ and I met on an escalator. I was going up and he was going down. As we passed, our arms reached out, our fingers touched, and that's how our magic began. We grabbed hands. Hold on tight, DJ said. Here we go. Instantly, we were transported to our road. It was not too wide. It was not too narrow. It was just right for us to share. At first, our road was smooth and straight. Traveling together was easy. It was full of adventure and it was full of love. We were so busy having fun until our road changed. DJ didn't notice, but I did. Our road became rough. There were steep slopes, scary twists, and crooked turns. We weren't alone. My secret friends were following us. I could see them, but DJ couldn't. When DJ fell, it was time to get help. One by one, I called upon my hidden friends. Help, I yelled. Embla, my enchanted walking stick, came to our rescue. Her magical sparkle gave DJ the oomph he needed to catch up with me. Our road went to the ocean, but DJ had forgotten how to swim. Help, I yelled. Subalda came to our rescue. She coaxed DJ to swim, but he couldn't. So with a tap of her magical whale of a tail, she pushed DJ safely back to me. Our road went into the woods. DJ was frozen with fear. He stopped hiking, afraid the bears were real. Help! I yelled. Sebastian Skunk came to our rescue. His magical spray made DJ feel safe, and he was able to hike back to me. Our road took us boating. DJ couldn't cross the lake. He forgot how to paddle. Help! I yelled. Brinston Beaver came to our rescue, along with his fun-loving lodge buddies. They paddled DJ across the lake using their magical tails as oars, and we met again on the other side. What we found on the other side was a mysterious, spooky island. We trudged our way through hardened gunk and tangled branches. Suddenly we came to a dangerous divide. Pariah Canyon! Help! I yelled. Musella Mouse came to our rescue. She explored the landscape with her magical whiskers. Musella's scan showed we were on the Isle of Ills. There was no turning back. Help! I yelled. Amy and Lloyd Hamster came to our rescue. They were both sick with old hamster's disease, better known as Alzheimer's disease. Even though they were stuck in the muck, Amy and Lloyd tried to warn us, "Beep before it's too late." I grabbed DJ's hand, dragging him back to our road, but DJ was already sick with old hamster's disease. DJ couldn't walk anymore. DJ couldn't talk anymore. Both of us felt very sad. Our outer smiles were gone. Help! I yelled as loud as I could. All of our family, all of our friends, including my secret friends, came to our rescue. They rushed to our road, helping us to find our inner smiles. Can you guess what they did? Painting a picture, reading a book, listening to music, looking at family photos, drinking cocoa, petting animals, watching sports. What magical ideas do you have?
So, I want to ask the audience, after you watch that, did anybody notice any symbolism? And if so, can you share it with us, or if you have any questions?
Old hamsters.
Well,
Old hamsters is probably what it.
all right, so what I want to do is share with you then what some of those symbols were. So I've got to go to the view, and then I've got to go to navigator, and now we can do that. So to give you an example, there are a number of places where we could use these pictures to stimulate conversation in support groups. I want to see if I can find, oh, wait a minute, why is it not showing me my notes underneath? Hold on, I have, oh, that, the navigator, why isn't it doing it? This is what I hate. All right, so there are speaker notes underneath, so I'm going to have to just tell you what you're going to maybe see here. Hold on a minute. For instance, in this, let me go back, wait a minute. Here, in this one, Dave is handing me flowers. And what they are the Alzheimer's forget-me-not flowers. And the symbolism there is that I am accepting the responsibility of taking care of those flowers, i.e. the Alzheimer's. And then in the other page over here, I'm looking as the flowers are drooping, that means something is happening, and I have an expression on my face. How do you think I look? Sad, or with the eyes big like that, surprised, shocked. All right, another one is the Isle of Ills. Oh no, let me go back home. Here we are. When we're at Pariah Canyon, Dave and I love to travel out west and hike out west, and we were actually in Utah at a place called the Pariah Canyon, and it was a fantastic experience. But here it was the pariah, meaning also we felt that we were problematic, and what that word would mean as well. And then the mouse went onto the island to scan the island. Well, instead of a CAT scan, we had a mouse scan. And so with the support groups, you can discuss all the different types of evaluations that you have to go through to get a diagnosis of all the rule outs, a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And there are quite a number more scans now available than when my husband was first diagnosed. Okay, let me find this. Yes, we're here with the hamsters. Anybody understand their names? Amy and Lloyd? Okay, so what it was is amyloidosis. Had I known then what we now know, that he also had frontal temporal dementia and Lewy bodies, had I known that he had a Lewy bodies, I would have included a Lewy somewhere in my story as well. So the yelling of help all along, the whole time, is caregivers are often not willing to ask for help. They don't know where to go for help. So that's very, very important. And in the support groups, the discussion of where do you go for help and what type of help, everybody's different in the type of help they may need. So it allows that as well. This last page, every kid can bring something. It will take away their fear if they think that they are going to bring out take the inner smile, create something to have an inner smile when the outer smile is gone. And so you tell them whatever you're doing is going to make your grandfather, your great-grandfather or mother feel better. And just by telling them that, they accept that, oh yes, I am doing something special. And they can do anything. It doesn't matter if they have a harmonica they want to play, or a hula hoop they want to show, or a dance, whatever they choose. It's their magic that they are imparting. So they can bring that to the visit. So at this point, I'm going to go back to my notes here. Hold on. I can't go back and forth very easily here. Bear with me for 1 minute. So with that, does anybody have any questions at all? Yeah.
What period of time does this take?
I'm sorry.
How many years or whatever does this story include?
You mean what age group is it for? My 2-year-old, who is now 22 years, he loved this story that I did with him. So this can be for little children, and it can be for adults in support groups.
Gail, I think the question is what period of time did you deal with DJ being ill?
Oh,
When did his journey
oh,
start?
like,
Your age.
oh,
How old were you when David?
how old was I when
Yeah,
David,
yeah.
Dave was 47 when I started, noting problems. I was 45. And when he was diagnosed at 54, I was 52. He died when he was 65.
Thank you.
So it was I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. It was a long haul. And there were awful things that happened. And I can't talk about the awful things. So this was my way of dealing with, I had to bring humor back in, and this was my way. And I'll tell you a cute story along that lines. Dave and I were at Giant Eagle, and we had driven there, and I was just ready to take a parking spot, and some woman in a little red sports car pulled into the spot I was going to take. Well, I was furious, but I didn't say anything. She gets out, we get out of our car, and she gets out, and she's got long blonde hair. She's wearing kind of low cut, looking pretty sexy. And my husband looks at her, looks at the car, and who knew what he was going to say? He said, "Will you look at that?" And he's pointing. "Will you look at that car?" So that was one funny moment a story that I will never forget. So I want to thank you all again for being here tonight, for traveling this road with Tracy and me, and I'd like to invite you to stay afterwards and take a look at and or buy books. A percentage of tonight's proceeds for books sold will go to the Clear Thoughts Foundation and also the Scottish Rites Masons Dyslexia Center. I hope the stories continue to spark conversations, laughter, reflection, and perhaps a little healing along the